Hi, my name is Lauren, and I'm doing my presentation on Gabriel Dumont. I thought I'd show you a picture of him so you have a reference. This is from the Northwest, is my mother. Here's a photo of him. He was he led the military forces in the 1885 resistance, so he worked closely with Louis Riel and his provisional government. That's what he's mostly known for. I will also go into a lot of other details about him as well. So he was a lot of things. He was a really skilled bison hunter. He was a merchant. He was a ferryman. So he ran a ferry that crossed the South Saskatchewan River in the town that he lived in. But yeah, what he was really known for was his political and his military leadership. So he worked with Louis Riel, as I said, in the 1885 resistance. So Duck Lake, Fish Creek, and Batoche, those were the three main kind of battles he led their forces in. So he was the man. He actually, along with a few other people, were the ones that went down to the States to get Louis Riel to ask him to come back and lead them again for the second resistance. So next I will just talk about his roots, his family, and where he came from. He was born in the Red River area in December of 1837. His parents were both Métis. Their names were Isidore Dumont was his dad, and Louise Laframboise was his mother. His grandfather was a French-Canadian voyageur. His name was Jean-Baptiste Dumont, and then he married a First Nations woman named Josette. So yeah, both his parents were Métis. His grandfather was French-Canadian, his grandmother First Nations. So after he was born in Red River. He then moved to Saskatchewan. His family grew up on a farm there. It's where they were is now known as Lloydminster. I don't think it was called that then, but that's the area they were in. His father was trading with First Nations, working with the Hudson's Bay Company trading post a lot. So yeah, he grew up, he was exposed to a traditional Métis lifestyle, buffalo hunting, trapping, fishing, canoeing, horse riding. He learned the bow and arrow at a really young age. And then he was able to get a rifle when he was just a young teenager because he was so skilled and was just ready for that. He spent lots of time with his father on the buffalo hunts. He was really, acquainted with the land and the topography. Like this way of growing up, this way that they survived and the way that they lived and hunted, it was all second nature to him because he lived it. As I said, he was given a rifle when he was maybe 13, I think. He called it Le Petit, meaning the little one. So that was his rifle's name, and every other rifle he had for the rest of his life, he gave the same name, and that is kind of something he was known for. After the resistance, after the Battle of Batoche, when he was, he had to go into hiding in the States, and it was said that the men that they had looking for him, they heard word that he had Le Petit with him, his rifle, and they maybe didn't try so hard to find him because they knew who he was. And let's see. So he was only 13 years old when he fought in his first battle. That was against the Sioux in the Battle of the Grand Coteau, and he came out unscathed, and that was said that was his transition into manhood was during that battle. And that was his first taste of battle. And from then he knew he excelled in that area. So he spent the next 10 years or so of his life as a traditional buffalo hunter. By 25, he was 25 years old, he was the leader of the buffalo hunt in that Saskatchewan area. Soon after that, he married a woman named Madeline Wilkie. She was the daughter of a Métis chief in North Dakota. I'll speak more about her at the end of my presentation, but she was a really neat woman. Something that really struck me when I was doing research about Gabriel was his character, as that was one of the strongest aspects of him. And in all of this, the reading, all of the sources that I found, his character was really, really highlighted. And so that kind of just shows, how strong that was for him. And that is one of the things he is remembered for greatly. He was elected the chief captain of the hunt for a reason. And he was leader in many other things in his life. But really the reason that was because people really, really trusted him. He was a man of his word. And he actually truly cared for the people that he served. He was Métis too. He knew what people were going through, and he really, he cared. He really just cared. And so, let me see what else I wanted to say. So he never did go to school. He didn't really need to. His life was, he learned through his life. His education was so hands-on and so relevant that he really acquired all of his skills just from, learning with his father and being on the plains. He ended up being able to speak multiple languages, 7. And just through his life on the plains, he learned diplomacy, politics, leadership, religion, and trade. He just... he was really immersed, I will say that. He spent a fair bit of time in a village near Batoche. That's kind of where he had land there. And it was called Saint Laurent is the area. He lived and worked there for several years. He was a big part of the community, and he ended up getting elected to be the president of their own governing body. So him and a bunch of other people came together and, were wanting to form their own council. So that's what they did. And he was elected the leader of that. He also, at that time, that's the area where he ran the ferry. So he had a ferry that he would help people cross. It was called Gabriel's Crossing there, and I believe there's a bridge there at this time now that is named the Gabriel Bridge because that is near where he lived. He also had a store there he had set up. So he was, really established, really a big part of the community there. Going back to, they had, their little government that they had set up, their council, I think they called it. They were getting frustrated with, they had land surveyors coming. They had the presence of the police, the Northwest Mounted Police in there. And all this time, the Métis in this area have been they've been writing to Ottawa over and over again to get their land title rights with no response. It had been years and years with no response and multiple requests. So, once the land surveyors and the mounted police came, they knew that things were kind of coming to a front in that way. So this was when Dumont and a couple other people traveled down to Louis Riel and asked him to come back and help lead the resistance. So Riel was more of the peacekeeper, wanting to talk things through, but when it came to the fighting, which it did, Gabriel Dumont was the man who led their men in the battles, really. So yes, as we know, there was Duck Lake, there was Fish Creek, and then there was Batoche. All of these battles, the Métis were very much outnumbered. So yeah, the first two battles, Duck Lake, Fish Creek, Dumont led his men through. They could push off the Canadian government and their army. And even, I think it was Duck Lake, the first one, Gabriel Dumont was actually shot in the head. He had a gashing wound there. And they were still able to hold off the opposition. And yeah, he nursed that wound through all three battles and just kept going. So that was pretty impressive. So by the time they were at Batoche, they were really outnumbered. They had less than 300 soldiers to the government's 800. They didn't have the resources that, the government had. So, but they still held them off for 3 days, which was probably due to Gabriel's leadership. Even following the battle, he stuck around and helped the women and their children make sure they were all okay. This is while he was still in hiding, of course, because they were searching for him and Riel. He was never captured, and he ended up getting down to the United States. So next, I'm running out of time. I need to start talking about his wife. I really wanted to do that because I love how Erin has mentioned multiple times in class that the importance and the significance of Métis women, and they were there too. They were really important as well. And Madeleine was her name. She was really significant in Gabriel's life, and I'm sure he couldn't do what he did without her. And I really wanted to honor her and honor that. So what I found out about her was that on top of her everyday duties, as a Métis woman, we all know how much they were responsible for. She also traveled with Gabriel on his trips. They would go by snowshoe or Red River cart or horseback in between Batoche and Winnipeg. She even made this trip on her own multiple times so that she could go sell the furs to the Hudson's Bay Company, because she was able to speak English and do more trading in that way. So yeah, she would travel alone, which says a lot about her. Her bravery, her strength, her knowledge. And then I also read many times that she was incredibly hospitable, compassionate woman. She really cared for others that were less fortunate than her. They didn't have any children of their own, but she did adopt. They adopted 2 kids, and she was also a teacher for the kids in Batoche. So she was also a real community-minded woman, much like her husband. She even stayed in Batoche during the Battle of 1885, during the resistance. She helped remove the injured men from the battlefield. She nursed the wounded and distributed the little rations and supplies they had. After all this, she even ensured Gabriel made it out safely. So I think it would be safe to say she was there for a lot of Gabriel's life, behind the scenes and also beside him. And I really wanted to recognize and acknowledge her impact as well. And let's see, so that's mostly what I wanted to talk about. I'm running out of time, I can see. So after the last battle at Batoche, Gabriel made his way to the United States. He was captured but released really quickly after, because there was controversy around Louis Riel's trial at the time, and they didn't want to repeat that. So I think that was why they let Gabriel go. He spent a lot of time traveling down in Montana, eventually came back to Canada and lived back at his original spot in Saskatchewan, which took him about 10 years to get his title back for. and then he spent the rest of his days there. Yeah, I see I'm at 15 minutes, so I will wrap it up. I will put my sources in the comments of my video if anyone is interested in learning more. Also welcome to ask questions in the comments. I'm happy to come back and answer any more, as I feel like there was more I could have said. But yeah, anyways, I'm at 15 minutes, so thank you for watching.